Okay, everyone, colleagues, dear attendees, welcome to the second side event of the series Youth in Capacity Buildings, organized by the PCCB in collaboration with PCCB Network at the virtual thematic session of the Asia Pacific Climate Week. I am Mahawan Karuniasa, representing the PCCB as the lead of Working Group 4, which focuses on identifying and addressing capacity gaps and needs, and I will be moderating this session today. From planning to implementation of the National Determined Contribution, or NDCs, and the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, youth have a critical role to play as active agent of change. Recognizing the transformational role of youth, at this side event, we seek to utilize the diverse experiences of our esteemed panelists in order to explore the role of youth in building capacities to support the coherence implementation of the National Determined Contribution and National Development Plan. Before I introduce our panelists, here is the format of the event to give you an idea of what to expect. The session will kickstart with a regional panel discussion, which will be followed by a call to action and a presentation of NDC Partnership Youth Engagement Forum. The panelists for today are Fosida Wijinayake, Executive Director of the Sri Lanka Youth Climate Action Network, also known as SLICAN Trust. Sakib Haq, Program Director, Program Coordinator at the International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICAD, and Youth Mentor to the ICAD Youth Leadership Program. And then Sheda Hadika Jamshid, Climate Change Policy Specialist at the Ministry of Climate Change within the government of Pakistan. And Ms. Lourdes Tibik, founding member of the Asia Climate Expert Group and IPCC lead author. Kathy Yetong Lee, youth advocate from China and a member of the Global Coordination Team on the Yongo constituency. And last but definitely not least, Ratna Juwita, Youth Legislator from Indonesia and Vice Secretary of Board of Women, National Women in Indonesia, and also also a member of Indonesian Youth Parliament Caucus. It is great pleasure to welcome all our panelists. Before we get started, I would like to present you the netiquette for today's meeting and the platform that will facilitate our discussion. Please keep your microphone muted and your camera off at all times. We will be using an online tool, Mentimeter, to interact with our audience. Please head over to menti.com and enter the following code 309-13700. It is advisable to use your phone or a spare device to connect to this platform so you can use the tool with minimum disruption to your meeting participation. The code and link to Menti can also be found on the chat. To break the ice, we would like to first ask the audience to give us an idea of where you're joining in from. Please place the pin on the map and tell us where you are based. Okay, now waiting for a couple of seconds. Yes, now you can see on the screen. Okay, now we would like to get an insight on how you view young people's role in capacity building by answering the following question. Are youth capacity builders or recipient, or both? I think we need a couple seconds to see the result, or maybe we can see the result later after a participant colleagues answer the question. Okay, we can see now 80% is both. That's great. And as builders, that's very good. Okay, this is the initial result of this question. Thank you very much for your input. Without any further ado, let's open the floor to the panelists and kickstart today's discussion. In order to set the context, we will now begin with an assessment of the status quo of youth engagement in the Asia-Pacific region. Given the country diversity of today's panel, let's start off this regional panel discussion by hearing from the panel. The first is about what is the role of youth and the current status of youth engagement in the country in planning and implementing NDCs. I would like to first invite Fosida to give us an overview on role of youth and the current status of youth engagement in Sri Lanka. The floor is yours, Fosida.
Thank you very much for the invitation to join the session today. And just a quick correction, Slacken Trust is known as Slacken Trust now. It used to be Sri Lankan Youth Climate Action Network in 2009, and which became a think tank. So we have a close connection with youth work in the Asian region, as well as national and international level. Going into the question of how youth, the role of youth in terms of climate policy and climate action, especially on NDCs. So I think there is a role for youth in all levels of NDCs, so decision-making processes, implementation, as well as monitoring and evaluation. But I feel like it's more in terms of implementation that the youth come into play than decision-making in some cases, because some of the NDC review processes could be a bit difficult during COVID times. So in the first round of NDCs, there was more engagement, I believe, whereas the COVID-19 has hindered some of the in-person consultations or the long process of consulting all stakeholders. But some of the examples I could provide on how youth have been involved in the process of climate action or climate change policy processes in Sri Lanka, which would lead to NDCs, would be when the review process was happening in 2018 and 19, there were participants who were youth. There was a conscious decision to engage at stakeholder engagement level, youth. And then there's also the evidence-based actions, the research areas that were highlighted where youth and youth researchers were given a chance. So for example, the third national communication where certain elements were taken in for NDCs. There was engagement of youth in it, as well as a communication and research strategy that was developed for Sri Lanka. So since NDCs are not in isolation, it connects to all processes that are related to climate change. These connect to youth and their youth engagement at local as well as national level. Another example I would like to highlight is there's an ongoing process where local level NDC capacity building as well as adaptation plan process or readiness work that's happening or being initiated, where there were youth engaged at all provinces. There were participants from youth organizations or organizations that were working with youth. So there's an input on priorities or gaps and needs that need to be addressed when we are focusing on youth that has been taken into account. So there's continued capacity building where youth are being a focus of the stakeholders that we prioritize as an organization, as well as the work that we do at national level and local level. And also the integration of SDGs and the youth work on SDGs and how that connects to climate action. I think I can elaborate a bit further in the other questions. Just want to keep the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fosita. You expressed that the youth is very active at the national and the local level. Thank you very much. Up next, let's explore the status quo in Pakistan. Hadika, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, and good evening and good wherever you are guys from. And thank you so much for this question, and thank you so much for inviting me to be one of the panelists. So talking from the country perspective of Pakistan, when we started the process of revision of NDCs, we realized that the previous NDCs which we developed in 2016 missed a lot of sectors, and also had no specific intervention regarding youth and gender, and some other sectors were missing. So when we built that equation, all the vulnerable groups and all the missing sectors which we are planning to submit this year. So for that process, what we have done is that we conducted one research on the role youth can play in the implementation of NDCs. In that we used a top-down approach where we conducted in-depth interviews with the experts, with the youth leaders, and with also the academia people, to get their input. How can we define the role of youth, and how can we identify the challenges and the barriers they face, and to create an enabling environment for them, to create opportunities for them so that they can play a significant role. Simultaneously, what we did is that we did a survey of youth survey with UNDP of 15,000 youth representatives, and we targeted both the urban and the rural area, and we wanted to get the information of how much climate education or awareness the youth of the Pakistan have. And these two interventions actually helped Ministry of Climate Change in Pakistan to have a very significant policy recommendation part of our revised NDCs, but also helped us to design the future interventions of policy, climate change policy interventions. And we are also revising the Pakistan climate change policy as well. So these were the researches and the survey were used in that as well. So this is like in not taking a lot of your time, but what we have done at the country level, and this is how we are planning to go forward as well.
Thank you very much, Harika. Not traveling 6,000 kilometers to southeast from Pakistan, Ratna from Indonesia, could you please tell us a little bit about the role of youth and the status quo of youth engagement in terms of planning and implementing in the NDC in Indonesia? The floor is yours, Bu Ratna, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mahawan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to invite me to participate in the Asia Pacific Climate Week in 2021. This opportunity is actually very valuable for me and also for my political party, National Awakening Party, because we need to explore the vision on green constitution, which will contribute to achieve the target of climate action actually in our countries. From 1990 until 2019, emissions from fossil energy use reached 38 gigaton CO2, an average increase of 0.9% per year between 2010 until 2019. But in 2020, emissions from the use of fossil energy actually decreased by 7% from the total emissions in 2019. It's because due to the pandemic and the global economic slowdown. And in other hands, the commitment of the parties through the nationally determined contribution from all countries, including Indonesia, actually has not been ambitious enough to keep the Earth's temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So in this occasion, I would like to convey that Indonesia's commitment to reduce 29% greenhouse gas by its own effort, and 41% with international assistance must be supported by the massive and intensive role of the young generation. And actually the younger generation, especially young politicians, as us can promote change in their community's lifestyle to become more environmentally friendly and reduce the consumption of fossil-based energy gradually through regular campaigns. But it can also supervise the implementation of government policies, especially those related to natural resource management. And the other side, it's depend of us, Mr. Mahawan, I thought. If we have a consideration, we know about the climate change and the youth disaster about it, so we can move together and regret it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ratna. And finally, Katie could set the context of China as a member of YONGO also provided the audience with a quick snapshot of youth and NDC in the entire region. Katie, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mahawan, and glad to see you again after PCCB 5 as well. Also, hello to everyone. It is truly a pleasure to join you today as a panelist, and also I'm so glad to see many youth faces as well. As stated, I am Kathy from Yongle, but I spoke on behalf of both the youth constituency and the women and gender constituency at PCCB 5 and other capacity building sessions during the recent SBs. First, I would just like to say big thanks to the Secretariat for inviting us and also for their amazing facilitation, and also thanks to PCCB and PCCB Network for organizing this event as well. And I'm sure that other panelists share the same point with me that we're really glad to have Mahawan as our moderator of today. And also thank you for your truly extraordinary work at the PCCB as well. And then moving down to the question, I would like to fully echo with fellow panelists, Wasita, Sita, and Ratna. They have covered basically so much that I wanted to echo with, especially on raising ambition, which is so critical in achieving our goals, as Ratna just mentioned. And of course, as youth, who would be a better stakeholder group in raising ambition than us? And of course, we know that raising ambition is so critical, important for NDCs, and of course, therefore, we would love to be further involved and also be considered from the planning to implementation of NDCs nationally and internationally. And then touching base on China specifically, many youth around have raised concerns on the they considered limited participation that civil society stakeholders, especially youth, had, no matter in planning or implementation. But of course, we have so much passion, and also we have so much more than just passion. We have technical knowledge, we have more than just ambition, and we also have creative solutions, and also because so much knowledge and techniques that we have. So of course, I would like to call on actions from the state to furthering including us youth in policy making and implementation, of course, as well as enhancing skills training. And of course, as the future of our planet, we need to include all activities to be included in these activities. And like we heard, actually other state representatives have mentioned in previous sessions of today. And of course, as the youth, we have passion, interest, technical knowledge, creative solutions. So yeah, this is what I believe the current state of in the region, in the nation, and also what we hope to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. You underlined the passion and the more ambition that we needed to achieve the Paris Agreement, and the ambition is not political will that already underlined by Ratna. Thank you very much. Now that we have set the context of youth engagement in the region, let's explore the role of youth in planning and implementation of global agendas. How can youth pivot the NDCs to facilitate the coherent implementation of climate action and sustainable development? First, I would like to invite Wasita to start off. The floor is yours, Wasita.
Thank you, Mahawan. Yes, I think there's a lot that youth can do, but there's a lot that needs to be done for youth to engage and be part of the process, the NDC implementation process, and scaling up and enhancing climate action. So one would be training of trainers where youth guide the way, highlighting how youth could be more engaged, as well as how stakeholders at local level as well as national level could provide more innovative and creative options, because there are out-of-the-box options that youth would highlight, and these could be taken into consideration when implementing or planning the implementation of NDCs, as well as education systems having youth engaged in NDCs and climate action, because a lot of governments or national processes do not have this as a component. So having youth-led initiatives within education systems, as well as identifying how education systems could focus more on topics like climate action, sustainable development, would allow youth to be more engaged. And just to highlight an initiative that we have, it's called Global Youth Forum on Climate Change, where we facilitate youth to develop their own projects as part of the project. So all together they would develop a project, and there would be a sector that is a priority, which would link to NDCs and national adaptation plans as well as SDGs. And then there are components that are highlighted, which they could implement at different levels. So if you would like to pick one, say, creating of awareness, capacity building of youth, then that would be facilitated through mentorships and different technical support that's provided. So this type of activities could be initiated for youth to engage and scale up actions at national as well as local levels. And one more thing I would like to highlight is the capacity that youth have to bring in crowds, bring in stakeholders and other youth to enhance climate action. And that could be something we build on and take it as a benefit to implement NDCs and enhance sustainable development ambition we have, as well as having them as evidence providers for scaling up climate action. So youth-led research, for example, or monitoring and evaluation of conservation efforts that could connect to forestry, biodiversity-related NDCs. So there's a lot that youth can do, but we need to ensure that they get the opportunity to do this, as well as provide means of implementation. Because not to get misunderstood in my previous answer, while we do things with youth, there's a lot of scope for you to engage more and for them to engage and facilitate them to engage and contribute to the processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fosita. And then considering the synergies of the climate and the 2030 agenda, how can this be done, Lourdes? Ms. Lourdes, floor is yours. Ms. Lourdes, I think you are still muted. I still cannot hear you. Just you can find. Okay. Hello, madam. Hello, Ms. Lourdes. Okay, I think I hope that Ridi or Eva, can you hear me?
Mahavan, I think we can go to Kathy and then come back to Lourdes because she's going to probably join back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. Then we can back to Ms. Lourdes. Okay, then I would like to go to Kathy. Yongo is the youth constituency of the UNFCCC. It consists of many youth-led organizations, groups, delegations, and individuals working in climate change-related fields. Kathy, as you are a member of Yongo, that is at the forefront of youth-led climate action, please tell us how you think that youth can pivot the NDC. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mahawan, for the question. And also, I fully echo what Awosita just mentioned, that there is a lot that youth can do, but also so much needs to be done for us, for example, on skills training. And of course, we also heard more than one party state actors, as well as moderator in the previous sessions today that are related to NDCs that highlighted the importance of youth and women from planning to implementation of national NDCs, more than just on a regional level or an international level, but national level is also critically important. And of course, we can only achieve our goals of Paris if there are synergies with stakeholders. And of course, as Yango, we advocate for youth-to-youth communication, and also we're very actively engaged, as you know, in capacity building, in ACE, and also in the Doha Work Program, and also we will have our coming ACE Youth Forum, right? I think this week or next. So. Everyone, to our audiences, you're also feel free we're very welcomed to join us for the ACE Youth Forum, where you can also hear more of our views on capacity building, and also in various regions as well. And of course, I think what is also important is to enhance youth access to finance, either through grants, loans, or scholarships, and also to support the upscale, the increase, and to increase uptake of innovations, which I believe is also critical. And of course, because I actually follow a few other mechanisms, meetings, negotiations under the UNFCCC, so I'd like to touch base a little bit on the nexus with other constituted bodies as well. And of course, as we mentioned in the PCCB 5, that we are so happy to see PCCB furthering its collaboration with other constituted bodies. For example, like two other topics that I care about a lot: financial mechanism and technology mechanism. And of course, we have heard in many meetings of other bodies this year that PCCB is seeking liaisons in their bodies as well. And of course, we're very glad to see this, and we would like to give our full support whenever needed as well. And as the youth constituency, we are, for example, task force members of the Technology Executive Committee, TEC. And of course, one of their task forces even is called capacity building, and the other one is to support their collaboration with other mechanisms. So we do believe that there's definitely a good way for youth to be involved and to support the work of PCCB, including on a regional and national level, of course. And also that of course, that this event is contributed by the PCCB Network as well. So it actually reminded me of another constituted bodies, the CTCN, the Climate Technology Center and Network, which also consists of a CTC network. So that is the implementation arm of the technology mechanism. And of course, as civil society stakeholders, youth, women, indigenous peoples, we engage very actively in various ways. So for example, we've been collaborating in various events, and also that we are task force members of the TEC, as mentioned, and also we have recently developed 2 consultant roles with them. So we do believe that these are very good ways to involve youth in the implementation and also the planning of NDCs, not only at a national level, but also with PCCB in collaboration as well. So we definitely very well, much welcome any support you might need from our side, and of course. And also we would like to touch base a little bit on energy, which is also related, and because PCCB is also related to the technology mechanism, and of course, energy transition is also a critical topic for us today. So yes, we would definitely love to offer our support on that as well. And I guess this would probably be my main points, and also just like to echo again what Wasita just mentioned. And I'll give the floor back to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie, for your offer to support. Yes, capacity building is a broad area, and you have a very good knowledge on the bodies and the convention activities. And okay, and I like what you said, that, and also what I said, a lot of youth can do, and also you underline about the importance of access of the youth on the scholarship, because as you know, science is important. So the youth and science is the future of how to combat with climate change. Thank you very much. I would like to back to Ms. Laudes. Are you there?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. If you like to turn off the video, you can do that.
Okay. What do you can I start now?
Yeah, you can start. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Regarding the question, the youth must and have big roles in moving the NDCs. Firstly, let the voices of the youth be heard, let them be involved, and let them collaborate. did not only raise their voices on the climate crisis, but also raise their voices as key actors and game changers. The youth are sources of new and innovative ideas on how countries and in the region are going to pursue their NDCs. They should share this in series of regional discussions on the NDCs and climate solutions. Now, to acknowledge the active participation at all levels, let me cite an example. The youth cluster of the Climate Reality Philippine project that started only as recipients of knowledge and ideas through collaboration with the country's key enablers and scientists. And as capacity builders, these youth clusters have been busy involved in the monitoring of the NDC processes and also has moved the development of the NDC roadmap in the country as in terms of engagement in formal policy-making processes. Second, they must be given platforms to be able to continue communicating what is the real stake of their futures. They must use their ability to harness social media to deliver their views and make the climate movement sustain its entry into mainstream and continue to demand action now. Thirdly, the youth must be empowered to assume leadership in pushing for transformational change in our societies to match countries' ambitions for peak emissions to happen early. And last but not least, they should enter into intergenerational partnerships, multi-generational and interdisciplinary collaborations to find innovative solutions. Examples for these are the Cordex Southeast Asia Pacific project. This is the coordinated regional climate downscaling experiments that has been started in 2012 and now has become a project or initiative of the World Climate Research Program. And this is actually a partnership between mature and young scientists in the region meeting to do climate scenarios, which should be serve as guidance to the planning for the implementation of the NAP and the NDCs. Another example is involvement in IPCC reports and in the preparation of the global assessment reports. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Ms. Laudes. Attendees, we started this session with a poll on if youth are capacity builders or recipients or both. In order to explore one element of the poll, the next question is, how can the capacities of youth be built or further developed at the individual, organizational, and systemic level to enhance NDC implementation? Sakib, as you coordinate of the youth program at ICAT, given your work and your experience, how can youth capacities be developed on this different level to enhance NDC implementation? Floor is yours, Sakib.
Thank you, Mr. Mawan, and thank you to the organizers for having me on the panel today. So in relation to what we've been doing, working with the youth over the last several years, is what's become, as I think Ms. Lourdes also alluded to, is that it needs to be seen as a two-way approach. It can't just be the fact that we're looking at youth as an end beneficiary of a project. We can't just seem to think about imparting them with materials and workshops and assume that they're going to just, that's the end of the project, and then they're going to take that forward outside of the sphere. And again, the two-way approach, as we've been discussing, is that we also need to, as implementers or researchers or local government, we also need to learn about how to use the youth effectively. What are the ways that we can engage them? What are the different ways and ideas that they can come forward with? So challenges that we've been coming up with is the fact of that there's quite a lot of knowledge that's being imparted to the youth in terms of the knowledge of climate science, what are the impacts, what are the emissions doing exactly, how are they being felt on the ground. But in terms of the national policies, such as an NDC, those are very technical documents about what are you actually doing in terms of those NDCs were, again, in terms of the two-way approach of capacity building. There is quite a lot of technical knowledge we need to be giving to the youth, every generation of youth that comes through, but also in terms of people that are doing the documents that we're talking about, whether they're IPCC reports or NDC documents, there's a lot of what we need to learn in how to engage youth and use them more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakib. I like to know your approach from two ways, that the youth is in one side as a beneficiary, but one side as an actor, as a researcher, and another position is very important. Okay, thank you. Then I would like to go to Ms. Laudes, adding another layer of looking at such multi-level capacity building through the lens of networks. Laudes, could you please share your views, given your experience with the ACE network? Floor is yours, Ms. Laudes.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. Let me start. Our task now is to ensure the appreciation and influence of science goes up even more dramatically among policy and decision makers. Also, the engagement of economic planners and other disciplines as a matter of urgency to integrate economic development with climate science. And most important is to heed to the next generations, the youth, to continue this task. Here are a few ways on how we can build and develop the capacities to enhance NDC implementation. First, encourage and enable the active participation in national, regional, and international initiatives as young scientists, as awareness builders, and also in other major roles in, for example, the NDC roadmaps, in regional scientific collaborations, such as the Codex Southeast Asia, and also in IPCC Global Assessment Reports preparation. Second, we should create opportunities to enable their participation in national and regional projects, such as those in protecting peat forests, as being pioneered in Indonesia by our participating scientists in the ACE. Third, start them young by inclusion of climate science and solutions in basic and secondary educational curriculum, such as the K1 to 12 modules on climate change and action being done in the Philippines today by its Department of Education, and the support the Philippine government has been giving the state universities and colleges in the development of climate science and policy coursework in all disciplines. Fourth, we should provide opportunities and initiatives for regional trainings, learning, mentoring in in-house centers and centers of excellence, not only for climate modeling, but more importantly, for developing innovative solutions for climate actions, such as local technologies for decarbonization in the important economic sectors that play major roles in our indices, to include economic modeling and quantification of how this will rather influence the country's economies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laudes. Up next, let's understand what is required to develop youth inclusive NDC process. Youth have a critical role to play across all phases of the NDC process. Kathy, please tell us, how can countries design youth inclusive NDC processes that ensure that youth are engaged across all the phase of NDC? Floor is yours, Kathy.
Thank you so much, Mahawan. And it is a very interesting question. And of course, like we mentioned, the two main points we believe, one is skills training and one is to further mobilizing finance. And of course, we're more than happy to be involved in the policy making and also all the way to the implementation. And of course, also, like my fellow panelists have previously said, to enhance youth involvement and also leadership. And besides what we already mentioned, I would also like to highlight a few other points or examples. So one is nature. It's not only a cost-effective measure, but also it mitigates climate change and also enhance livelihoods. And of course, the CBD is our sister convention from the Real Earth Summit. And Youngo, we are collaborating with their youth constituency and Youth for Nature, another organization, to form a global youth statement on nature-based solutions. And of course, we believe it's also related to PCCB's collaboration with the SCF, the Standing Committee on Finance, because we all know that their annual forum this year, the topic is on nature-based solutions. So it is a topic very closely linked to climate change, also closely linked with youth as well. And then speaking about finance, we also believe that financial institutions and also the private sector, especially the private finance, the sector that I work in, also is a great way to mobilize support in youth involvement in NDCs. And of course, we have seen many private financial corporates who have their foundations that show their support and ambition, especially in the APAC region. We're very glad to see that. And of course, some of them, for example, one is collaborating with UNDP and other UN agencies. And of course, we encourage more institutions and corporates to do so to empower youth in NDCs related and also capacity building related as well. And of course, about finance on a market level, we also encourage the development of green bonds, green loans, green stocks, although they do not look directly related to youth. But again, they do help achieve our Paris goals. And of course, as youth, we're the future beneficiaries or the ones taking the consequences. So this is actually also related to us, and we would love to show our support on that as well. And also, of course, another topic that is very related to us is action for climate empowerment, like previously mentioned, and skills training, awareness raising, and that since we're the future generation, so our 2030 goals, 2050 goals really cannot be achieved without us or other civil society stakeholders like women and indigenous peoples. And of course, it's very important for parties to recognize that we have so much technical knowledge and creative solutions to offer besides just passion, and the importance of collaborating with non-party stakeholders besides civil society stakeholders like the youth. The efforts from the private sector, especially the private finance sector, should also be mobilized. And also, of course, we've mentioned that skills training and awareness raising are critically important. And of course, for all the youth, and including youth in the private sector as well, like me. And actually, in the previous session today, we have seen a few parties' efforts on engaging youth in specific activities, and we really appreciate it. One state representative actually mentioned that they plan to involve youth. Their way of involving youth in planning to implementation of national NDCs is through catching fish. And we would like to take this opportunity to remind our audiences, parties, and the public that although these activities are vitally important, this should not be the only way to involve youth in planning to implementation of national NDCs. We should be involved in policymaking. We should be involved in actual activities like the parties do. And of course, as the constituency, we are involved on an international level, but also sometimes on a regional level or national level, it seems to be lacking. So we definitely love to call on ambition on that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Now moving to you, Ratna, based on your experience as a youth legislator, especially at youth parliament caucus, how can this be done? Please share your experience. Floor is yours, Ratna.
Thank you, Mr. Mahawan. Actually, I always ask about you. What should we do in parliaments to support this activity? The Paris Agreement is a legally binding international agreement on climate change that has been adopted by is at COP21 in Paris on 12 December 2015, but effectively enforced on 4 November 2016. But it's not enough to create the youth to move together and make this as a big issues for us. And Indonesia, as one of the parties that signed the Paris Agreement, has ratified it actually in national law through law number 16 of 2016. But 5 years since the Paris Agreement was agreed, the concentration of greenhouse gases, especially from the use of fossil energy, has now shown a trend to peak and decline. That's why currently Indonesia's climate policy relies mostly on land-based sector, such as forestry, peatland, agriculture, and land conversion, and make it worse. The burden of reducing emissions in the energy sector is loosened despite the trend in the next 10 years. The energy sector will become Indonesia's largest emission source, surpassing the land-based sector. I think the government's commitment to transforming the economy no longer depend on the export of commodities that destroy the environment and exacerbate the climate crisis. Make this become a collective homework that is still being faced by all elements of our nation, Mr. Mahawan, including us as young members of parliament who are committed to transforming policies in controlling climate change in Indonesia. I have Dati in the energy commissions, and I always ask about the progress and achievement of the new renewable energy, which is targeted to reach 23% by 2025. This including urging the immediate ratification of the law on renewable energy as a legal foundation to accelerate the energy transformation from fossil energy to new renewable energy massively. And in every meeting with the government, especially the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, I always urge them to immediately implement a program of installing solar electricity in all government buildings and also public facilities, including schools and Islamic boarding school as a pilot project for us. And the last, maybe for me and others, the young member of parliament, we will still continue to struggle politically to encourage the policies that labor in controlling environmental sustainability and the transformation of fossil energy into new and renewable energy. So let's fight together to give a better legacy for prosperity. Maybe that's my perception. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ratna. Now, having just learned about how youth can be included and engaged in NDC processes, let's now explore how can country develop youth-led NDC implementation projects aligned with national sustainable development policies and targets. I would like to invite Fosita. Fosita, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So looking at how youth-led activities or projects could be developed for NDCs, one would be understanding that, I mean, I think this was mentioned by another speaker also, sometimes the term NDCs or other technical terms might not resonate with youth. So there is a need to capacity build on these aspects, but also in general about how climate action could happen. Because some of these projects might not be saying NDCs, but they would contribute to scaling up NDC actions. And in the process of developing NDC action plans at country level, it's important that we identify youth as a component of, or like a focus, as well as a stakeholder group that we can engage and work with. One thing I feel is a gap is the fact that a lot of youth can't lead projects purely because they can't access finance. One, because they do not have organizations that have accreditation or capacity to manage funding. And also the fact that they do not have a track record of having engaged long-term when funding is requested. So one option would be that there are individual grants for research, individual grants for small-scale projects that could connect to NDC priorities at national level or local level, or identifying entities that could work with youth to support them to do these activities, because there are projects that are similar to NDC implementation plus engagement of youth, which could facilitate this process. Additionally, the localizing of SDG indicators, targets, that's ongoing in many countries, and then engaging youth in this and having synergies between NDCs and SDGs in achieving targets, monitoring and evaluation, that could be something. And I would also like to highlight the need for just transition as well as COVID-19 being taken into these aspects, because we are looking at youth, but we're looking at them as a group that is similar, but it's not the case. They're not the same. So there might be different needs that one community, the youth in one community might need more than the others. And also the just transition aspect of providing capacity building and skills to engage them in a better manner would be something we need to look at as well. So I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fusida. Sakib, I would like to go to Sakib. Please tell us, how can this project be aligned with the sustainable development policies to achieve the 2030 agenda and meet climate change target? Sakib, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Marwan. So I think just following on from what Bosita said, I agree with quite a lot of it. There are a number of ways that we have attempted to try, either nationally or from donor communities, to engage more youth. But as I mentioned before, it's always seen as an end project result. It's a beneficiary that you're targeting and giving them something, rather than a two-way approach that we're trying to discuss here. And just to sort of use an example, we recently just concluded the 15th International Community-Based Adaptation Conference just last month, where we've had a number of youth speakers that were also either focal persons for their community as a community group, or they were members of their own organizations, leading their own organizations as directors or coordinators themselves. And there's quite a lot of that happening in almost all sectors, whether they're just climate change and environment issues or any of the other SDGs that you can look at. And I think one of the things that we found out from the pandemic is that all the SDGs are really, really interconnected. You're pulling one thread on a public health, but it brings out issues that are happening in your infrastructure, in your education, in your housing, in the way people are managing their work styles and work environments, etc. And there are youth groups that are working in almost all those sectors. There's a youth group that's working on education. They have their own network that they're working on those issues. There's ones that are working on waste picking and recycling. And again, the youth are very, very resourceful with very nominal bits of funding. Oftentimes what we see in these sorts of national drives and international programs is that they have a very minimal amount of funding, a minute little pot of fund that they give to a youth organization and say, yes, please give us your innovation and use it as a pilot. But they're really, really small amounts of funding. They're only really for a stipend or sort of subsistence for their time and effort. And I think we need to break out of that approach in terms of really engaging the youth, getting the youth to lead. It's about finding these people within your population, in your society, in your communities that are being active, that are enthusiastic, that are engaged, being able to give them the resources, whether it's from national budgets or international partners, being able to give them a bit more agency in the decisions that are being made in their localities. And again, using their innovation and creativity on how they're approaching the different SDGs that are now so interlinked and intertwined. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sakib. Hadika, based on your experience assisting the Ministry of Climate Change for implementing Pakistan National Determined Contribution, how can this be done? Hadika, the floor is yours. Hadika, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. If you would like to turn off the video, it's fine.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So,
yes.
So the two methods we use, I explained previously, the Ministry of Climate Change, the we have done these two Ministry of Climate Change to design a roadmap for this year to how to engage and for the future as well. But focusing on this year and what activities can be done to youth in the implementation of the end. What we have done is that we have designed a campaign. It is dedicated for our research into the role of and develop a capacity with Pakistani youth to fight the climate change and through awareness raising, curriculum development, entrepreneurship activities, and IT solutions. So please, we are focusing on, and this is a roadmap we have developed, and there's organization taking up different activities. There's climate, which includes curriculum and treating those curriculum and educate material into local languages so to the vast population. And then we are focusing on climate change awareness of state of art mobile applications is one of the and the main aim is that you give youth a platform so that they can play they can better support the adaptation interventions such as tree plantations, environmental conservation, local and domestic competitions, and so on, so and so. And, the major focus, which I think it's very, we have to be very realistic when we talk about youth and what role they can actually play. And keeping that in mind, they focusing the major focus is on green economic empowerment. Jobs, promotion of youth startups and entrepreneurship through national. Currently, we are in the process of conducting a hackathon. And it focuses on waste, circular economy, and plastic and air pollution. So each competition, we want to focus on different thematic areas and involve universities and youth to actually come up with new ideas, and where they can play a role to give them a platform they can forward. And then we are also planning COP in the city, where we want to engage youth in different programs. It will be organized in different cities before COP, the major cities of each product. During these COP in the cities, we want to identify some youth leaders so that they can be funded to attend the COP in class. And then climate change training, educate the educator concept, which that everyone was talking about. So it's very important to educate the people who are teachers and the policy makers about climate literacy of translating the climate change curriculum. So these are some of the interventions which we are planning for this year and coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Harika. This has been a rich discussion, and I would like to thank to all our panelists for sharing their inputs and experiences with us, mirroring the zeal of the youth of today in terms of being action-oriented, gathering all the lessons learned from this regional panel discussion. Let us now move to the call to action. As part of their youth engagement plan, which seeks to engage young people in NDC partnerships work, NDC Partnership is here to tell us about their virtual youth engagement forum and how they are bringing youth input into NDC processes. Please take the floor. I think you unmuted your microphone.
Hi, Mr. Pak Marwan.
Okay, please.
Sorry, it's supposed to be Harika, but she needs to leave very quickly for her work.
Okay.
If it's okay, I will come in to jump in. My name is Putra Zenata, and I'm a Regional Program Officer from the NDC Partnership Support Unit. Just a quick introduction, participants of the NDC Partnership. For those of you who may not be aware yet, as the name suggests, it's a global partnership of countries and development partners striving to achieve global climate goals by facilitating international support for NDC revision and implementation. So the NDC Partnership is thrilled to be hosting the first ever Youth Engagement Forum on July 26 to July 28. This forum is designed to gather a wide array of perspectives from NDC partnership members and youth constituencies on youth engagement in NDC-related processes. So many countries in the region are NDC partnership members. Indonesia is, Pakistan is, and even some of you participants who come from countries who are not members are still welcome to join. So the main objective of this forum is to reflect on success stories and lessons learned from youth engagement, to build capacity for young people to continue engaging in NDC-related processes, to gather insights on topics relevant to the partnership, such as enhancement and implementation of NDCs, youth engagement in green recovery, youth-led projects, and so on. So the forum was proposed in the Youth Engagement Plan, designed to build young people's capacity to engage in global NDC partnership activities, and outlines opportunities for members to include youth in the national climate action. We are grateful for the leadership of the NDC Partnership co-chairs and steering committee. The partnership is co-chaired by the UK and Jamaica this year, and we are launching registration for the Youth Engagement Forum on our website this week, and hope you will all join us in a few weeks for these critical discussions. So please feel free to reach out to youth@ndcpartnership.org as shown in the screen if you have any questions in the meantime. Thank you so much, Pak Makwan. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Putra. Before we close this session, I would like to invite my colleague Rudy, the PCCB Network coordinator, to provide us with an overview of the youth engagement in the PCCB and PCCB Network. Rudy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marwan. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone tuning into this side event. First of all, I would like to thank all the panelists for this really rich discussion that we've had the opportunity to listen to today. And of course, to Mahawan as well for moderating this exciting session. In order to foster regional collaborations among stakeholders beyond this event, the PCCB and the PCCB Network welcome youths and youth-oriented organizations from the Asia-Pacific region to join the network. So we currently have 258 members, and out of which there are already over 20 youth organizations that are part of the network, and we surely have room for many, many more. The PCCB network seeks to engage stakeholders involved in climate-related capacity building. The network aims to act as a platform for members to exchange knowledge and experiences on good practices of their work. Therefore, we ask interested organizations to fill out the registration form, which is now posted on the chat, and join us by becoming members of this growing community. Thank you very much, and back to you, Mahawan.
Thank you very much, Rudy. And I would like to now close this session by thanking all our panelists for the lively discussion, the Regional Climate Week's team for making this side event possible, and of course, to our attendees. This session goes to show that young people play a critical role in supporting and achieving ambitious climate action and sustainable development. Therefore, their integration and engagement at all levels of the NDC process is vital. Before we close this session, I would like to ask you to, in one word, express your expression of the meeting today by adding the code 534-84239 on Menti. Thank you, everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of the session of the Asia Pacific Climate Week. Thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mahawan.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Ratna.
much.
Thank you, Sakib. Thank you, Rudy and Eva.
Thank you, sir.
Colleagues from Secretariat and Ms. Lourdes, everyone attendees. Thank you very much for attending this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.